Hey guys, I can finally do the video about installing the USB encoders and installing the new joysticks, new buttons. The problem I had was the joysticks I was going to use, unfortunately, have been misplaced, so I had to order another set. The cool thing about the set is it's a Sandwall clone set. You have two joysticks, various buttons. Cool thing is I got these color combinations which come in yellow, green, red, blue to match what I have on my arcade superhero. It comes with player 1, player 2, and coin buttons, which you can drill in if you want. These are all light up buttons, so I will have the daisy link power from the encoder board. The other thing it comes with is encoder boards. I figured I'd get the set because this is the one that would get to me the quickest. So I have some encoder boards, now I have these. I'm most likely going to try to use these. If not, I may use the ones I already had. Then they will come with a USB-A to USB 2.0. You'll pretty much connect this end here to the encoder board, this part to your Pi, your computer, etc., etc. Comes with bat tops, which, as you can tell, already put the bat top here. And the reason why I had to get this joystick instead of using the originals is because the originals does not have the 5-pin cord that I need to connect to my encoder board. You also have all of your power cables. Let me just leave this joystick here to go over the difference. So the original board, which at this point you should disconnect your audio and power cable from your LCD board, which were connected before. Those are the ones that were connected to these two cables. Sorry, these two cables here. Disconnect that, so now I can remove and pull out those same cords. Sorry, not these cords. These cords. These are the cords you disconnect. So now that I have the original controller deck here, I went ahead and I removed the 3 screws back when I was setting up the LCD board so that I can have these cables stick out more and I can reach my LCD board. But we're going to officially fully remove all this. We have our original buttons, which we can use, and we have the original joysticks, which my encoder set up. Since these are set up with 2 wires per each side, they don't have the 5-pin like a Sandwall or a Sandwall clone. These original joysticks will not work with my encoders, and I'm sure you'll find they may not work with yours, since unless you're spending a good amount of money, this is what everyone's pretty much buying. These kits for 2 full sets run for about 35 to 40 bucks. For 1 set's about 20, 25 bucks. I'm talking about various buttons, like 8 buttons, an encoder and a joystick. If you have the 2 set, we're talking about 2 joysticks, 16, 20 buttons, and 2 encoders. So I got this set. I'll link it below. And I'm going to go ahead and remove. I'll just do one side for now. I'll do one player for now. Go ahead and I'll take care of these buttons and this joystick. Before I get started on the controller deck, I wanted to show that in order to add more buttons, since for the Raspberry Pi you're going to need a hotkey button, possibly another 2 or 3 buttons, instead of drilling holes into the controller deck and the plexiglass, I've decided to take this top panel that is on top of the arcade, and with this thinner piece I'm going to drill in 1/2-inch holes with a standard power drill and put these smaller buttons, which are still fully switched buttons there. They'll take the same exact cables that you'll have on these larger buttons, as you can see here. So these little guys are pretty awesome. They'll come in various colors. They're really cheap. And if given how thin this is, they're obviously long enough. So I'm going to probably add 3 buttons up here. Pretty much a player 1 and 2 select and a hotkey button. I'll probably change up the colors so I can tell which is which. in order to remove the buttons, first I recommend you get this controller deck plastic protector off. You wouldn't want to scratch that up. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the bat tops on both of these joysticks. Just go ahead and turn these counterclockwise. Remove the plate, or what they call dust cover. Then you should be able to lift without any issues your plastic protector. You may also have some plastic around the edge. This is a good time to take off any excess plastic. These are quite thin and they do scratch easy, so be careful to take care of this. To remove the buttons, you simply push on each side, push these in, and then go ahead and push downwards, and you'll see the button will pop right up. Now, I don't have all these cables loosened because this is still zip tied. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Now, I'm not removing the power and volume because we are using that. 4 screws for the joystick. Alright, now this is unscrewed. Should be able to push through. Sometimes there's a little glue. Luckily this time there was practically nothing. So these are the original joysticks. I'm trying to align this, and from what I see they do not align. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is centered. Yeah, it's centered there. I do have this one screw hole that does align, so I'm going to go ahead and try to use that. Checking that this is centered. The way I can tell is I look in. Let's see if I can catch that on camera. You see there's a black ring around there. So I can see that black ring, and I can see the white thing. I have full range of motion. I have this one original screw hole holding it quite tight, and now I have to put the other 3. But I'm going to go ahead and just apply pressure and screw through this manually. I don't recommend a power drill at this point, since this is pretty soft. It may go too far, it may strip it. If you have to, go ahead and do it at a low torque, low setting. Actually, that's not as easy as it seems. You can go ahead and use a power drill if needed, but I got that in there. You go ahead and make sure this is still centered. Alright, looks perfect from my end there. Now you go ahead and add the other 2. Okay. Gotta make sure that at least these 3 are as tight as you can get them. Not that it matters, it's just this last one had a hole slightly above it. Since I had a pre-drill hole slightly above it, this isn't the tightest, the other 3 are. If I have any issues, I can go ahead and just add another screw here to the middle of both. Keeping the same color scheme, so I'm going to go ahead and put blue here. Both of those. Hold out, I flip it over. And then you'll have a set of these washers that are, not washers, these little screw braces. I don't know the proper name of these things, quite honestly. But you'll take the ridged part that goes straight down. And this is all done by hand. Hand tighten that. You have to hold the button in the front and then turn that. There you go. That's tight, that's not going anywhere. All right, next, red. Put 2 red ones in. Yeah, honestly, I'd probably have all of these facing wherever you're gonna have the board. There isn't a lot of space on this control deck. I usually like to double stick tape, to do some type of double stick tape to keep it around here. I don't see myself having that much room. I may actually have to keep this hanging off on the bottom of the bucket and have things attached to it. It'll be something like so. We'll see what space I have. Honestly, I don't even have a good enough space down here because the bucket goes up to there. So it is interesting. This is the smallest controller deck I have dealt with yet. It is much more. It is much smaller than the regular 3/4 cabinets. Okay, tightening all these by hand. I mean, if you need to, you could use an adjustable wrench to kind of hold this or turn it. I don't think it needs that much force. I think by hand, that's enough force. So these are the new light up buttons and the new joystick. The new joystick is actually a little taller too, which is great. Always prefer that. So I will admit, I don't like the redundancy of the player 1 button showing player 1 with this right next to it. So I don't know if I want a player 1, player 1, player 2, player 2. I may actually just try to keep these black buttons or find other buttons, but I'm going to go ahead and just put this in there for now. I have these coin buttons. I'll go ahead and I'll use a coin button instead. Now, given that this has a word, I'm going to make sure that orientation stays correctly as I'm tightening this. The orientation is lined up perfectly with that. I'll make sure that's flush, and I'll go ahead and I'll turn that. Yeah, it's gonna correct that. Okay, it looks good. Okay, so I had to pause the video. I was working on the controller deck for a second there because there's 2 things I noticed. So in the original video, I recommended this brand of zero delay USB encoder. So the brand on Amazon is called EasyGet, spelled together as one word. EasyGet, what are they called? EasyGet 2-player generic USB encoders. This is the instructions you get with it, and they're these blackboards, which I've used in probably at least 3 or 4 arcade 1-ups already, and you know, I like them. I've been keeping some of the buttons, just switching out joysticks when needed. So if you have original buttons like so, actually let me take these, which are almost completely taken apart. So if you're keeping your original buttons like these, you'll just need a pair of pliers to gently but firmly remove the cables or these clamps that are originally on the original cables. Then you'll go ahead and take the supplied cables from this set. Let me go ahead and move my camera down a bit. Hold on. You'll take the supplied cables from this set, and you'll just go ahead and polarity for the buttons don't matter, so black or red can go anywhere. Just gonna go ahead. I just usually try to keep it consistent. Like if I've decided that black's always gonna be the left side, I just try to keep it the same. And you slide these in, and they're self-crimped, they hold themselves on. Then you have this 2 little pin port here, and you'll follow the instructions on where those should be plugged. If you look here, you have your 5-volt powers along the top. Then you have either turbo buttons or auto modes, various other things. And you can have up, down, left, right. If you have the joystick like these that can break up into various 2 cable pins. But these buttons would just connect to the bottom. And as long as you kept it the same across all of them, I mean across the 2 encoders, you would be good. You just go ahead and set up all of your Arcade 1-Up buttons with this USB encoder and connect this to your Pi or PC via USB. Now this new set I ordered, because I didn't have joysticks, actually came with a full set, and it's a little different. Now this brand is called EG. It's one of those that you'll see sponsored and advertised all over Amazon. I don't know if EG also stands for Easy Get. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, these Amazon companies will just change out their names the moment they start to get flagged for fake reviews or too many negative reviews, even though I can't complain about this one. It's been fantastic. And the EG one I'm using so far seems great. But here's a major difference. So, the EG kit, which is what I started to install, that's the one that comes with these light-up buttons, are not like other kits I've used that have light-up buttons. Those are usually the same as that original one I showed you, which are they're all 2 pins, and then you daisy chain this 5-volt power across them. This one's actually super easy. So what you do is you get the encoder, the buttons, the joysticks, but they're not compatible with each other across the board. You will get the cables that come with this set. Let me go ahead and pull one out here. And they're exactly the same at both ends. It's 3 pins and 3 pins. If you read the instructions for this kit, you'll read that they are not 2 pins across the board. Look at the difference here. These are 2 pins. These are 3 pins. So each and every single one of these ports is providing power. So you don't have to daisy chain anything. You just straight up plug that in here. You plug the corresponding end. Obviously, you'll have to cut this right into the button. Let me go ahead and bring this front and center right into the button. And bam. It's now connected and you'll have power. And it's as simple as that. I actually think that's pretty convenient. Then you'll also have the 5-pin port for the joystick. And that's the main reason why I bought this set. Here are the joysticks, 5-pin port will go there. You also have these 5 volts that will power, I'm assuming, maybe some other buttons. And then you have, again, for this set, you have a mode, clear, turbo buttons up here. And then you have 4 other 2 power pins here. Now, they say they're up, down, left, right. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see if I can mix this up with the smaller buttons I bought. So these are the smaller buttons. I mentioned these at the beginning that I'll be installing 3 of these on top of my Courtercade. So I can use these for either RetroPie to have my select and hotkey buttons as needed. The thing is, these have 2 pins on the bottom. Let me see if I can go ahead and bring that up close enough for you to see. 2 pins on the bottom, a lot like what you'll find on your standard sandwall buttons or these buttons that come in the Arcade 1-Up. So I was planning on taking, let me go ahead and see if I can use the one I just took off of the Arcade 1-Up. I was planning on taking this this wire setup, similar to the one that's already in the Arcade 1-Up, crimp those in here, and plug these additional buttons to my encoder board. But now that these are 3 pins, I guess I'm going to try to do it up here in these additional 4 that I have that are supposedly directional. I'll find out whether or not that works, honestly. I will probably do that in my Pi setup video, which will probably be the video after this. But yeah, I hope it does. If not, I have kind of a mismatch here between 2 sets, this EG set and this Easy Get set, that are different. Now, normally I would just say, especially if this works, I'll let you know at the end of the video. I'll probably mention it in the description as well. If this EG set works, the one that comes with a whole set of light buttons, the joysticks, the encoders, I'm definitely just gonna recommend to get this. It's convenient. So I'll let you know at the end of the video. When you get these cables in this EG set, you'll have the wires all stuck together. You just go ahead and follow down by pulling these off. It won't damage it in any way. I mean, as long as you start where the wires are already torn apart, it's 3. You just pull down. They just go ahead and strip down easily like that. As I mentioned before, the only thing you have to make sure is go ahead and line up your encoders in the same exact position and do one button on each side at a time. Make sure they are going into the same exact position. Now, it doesn't matter what position you put them into, but I like to go ahead and make sure I have them in the same exact position. So I'm going to go ahead and start from the bottom left. I'm going to go ahead and put that button bottom left, and then to make sure it's in the same exact, plugged into the same exact port, I'm going to do that one at a time. Doesn't matter where you put these, they just have to be identical. So you got to make sure that these buttons are in the same exact ports, these buttons, and your start buttons. Obviously your joysticks only have one option, but all of these light up buttons that come with this kit will all be plugged into this lower row, making sure they're exactly the same. Plug these into the joysticks. You'll see the 5-pin cable. There you go. Doesn't pop in the first time quite easily. You know, take it out, try it again. Maybe the pins weren't perfectly aligned. I'll plug it into the 5-pin port here on the board. It's kind of great. You can't really get confused given that there's only one 5-pin port for the joystick, and all the 3-pin ports belong to the buttons. Making sure these are good. Giving it a little tug, nothing too tight. I would not pull on these too tight because I realize these boards that are powering the buttons LED and also what connects, they're a little wobbly. I seem to move them around. They seem like, honestly, if they get pulled real tight, that can pop off or break. In my opinion, I think these are going to work. You don't really get any pull or any leverage on these from the underside. It's just when you remove the control board in the future, I think I'm going to leave these loose so that they don't tug on those buttons. So I realize the original arcade 1-up dust cover is a little smaller. The ones that came with the kit are a little larger. I'm going to go ahead and keep the original arcade 1-up ones, so they don't cover any of the lettering on the board. So when I move it around, it covers less lettering than the larger one. The plexiglass can only go one way because these buttons are in different locations, so you can't mess that up. Not that it would matter. Go ahead and put the dust covers back down. Okay, here are the bat tops. Okay, so this is the part where I'm going to have to be careful. The bucket that comes, this controller deck container, I call it a bucket, that holds the Courtercade controller deck is actually not as thick as I originally thought, so I'll just have to make sure that the encoders kind of live in an area like so, because I wouldn't want to have the button, the wires, and the encoders all in one area, that sandwiched together. That's way too thick. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see what space I have. If I don't have enough space in this container, I can go ahead and tuck the encoders underneath the screen and bring it back there beside the speaker, since I'll have space because I'm only putting a Pi in there. I'm going to go ahead and see what I can do. Yeah, that's a bit tight. I'm going to go ahead and take these encoders and tuck them underneath, under the monitor, to the back, beside the speaker. Careful not to unplug anything or damage anything. Again, I'm going to put this, go ahead and tuck it in there, and pop right back there. I'm going to try to fold all of these cables inwards on both sides, like so. And that actually is a better option in my opinion, because I can still access the encoder board from inside the Courtercade. I have this one cable stuck here. I'm inside the Courtercade, and I can add the buttons that I'll be adding to the top later to those encoder boards without having to remove this, because I will have access to those encoder boards inside the cabinet. There is a strong magnet on the speaker. I will use some double-sided tape and stick these to the side. If they do reach, they do. Right around there they reach. I will see. I don't want to have any of these cables too tight. Again, if I need any slack, let me just bring in all the slack of these cables into the Courtercade. So that to me is going to perform better. I also have these cables, which is the power and the volume rocker from the control deck, the controller deck, back underneath here to reconnect to the LCD board. We'll be doing that in a second. So I'll go ahead and do that now. If you need a reminder what these cables are or where they came from, take a look at the first part of my tutorial that covers that. These are the ones I removed at the beginning. I incorrectly pointed at these other ones here. I incorrectly pointed at these. This is the one that goes to the speaker that's in the bottom. These two that connect to the wires that are coming from the controller keyboard are connected to these two switches here, which, if your Pi is set up correctly, you can eventually get this to turn your Pi on and off with the correct on-off switch script, which I won't be going over in this video, but hopefully I can go over next video, if not the one after. These are the USB cables that came in the box. They're quite long. I'm going to go ahead. I always recommend trying to use what comes with the actual kit, because usually the manufacturer or seller has gone out of their way to test what comes in the box to work with your items. And just because you buy another USB cord on Amazon, it doesn't mean it's going to deliver the same power or the same quality. The thing is, these are so long that if I do have a smaller, let me see, what are these, like 3 or 4 feet? Oh man, these are like 5 feet long. Okay, these are great for the 3/4 cabinet or full size cabinet, but for something like this, I'll just tuck them all in the back, everything under the controller deck, if I can. I'll go ahead and plug that in. Now, by doing this, what we essentially done is provided arcade buttons, whether the arcade 1-up or third party, or even, you know, higher end if you get some HAP or Sanwa actual buttons. We've pretty much attached them to a board that converted them into a USB signal that can be plugged into the Pi or a computer or various other things. In a sense, it's like we turned them into a USB controller, which is great. And that's ultimately what we wanted to do. We got the LCD board so that we can have HDMI out to connect to one of these devices. And now we got these USB encoders to have USB control out. And with that, you can get yourself something like a Raspberry Pi 3 or 4. Connect them into the USB ports you'll have. I'll go ahead and find a way to possibly mount this in here. I'll add something much smaller than this, but a power strip that at least will provide power to the LCD board and my Pi, and you should be good to go. These look great. I went ahead and I powered up the Pi. It's running through a splash screen. I had to mute it, but we went ahead. We have our buttons being recognized. We have our joysticks being recognized. These are coming up as start buttons. And the volume does work. I did have a slight issue at first. I had to change the source to HDMI because I was looking for a 3.5mm headphone jack, but those are settings I can go over in the future. I do have a couple things I want to figure out. I want to see if I can go ahead and keep this micro USB that's on the side here. It's on the side of the controller deck, and see if I can power that some other way, and to see if I can go ahead and power up the marquee with the actual Pi instead. So there's a few things I'm gonna try. I guess that's it for this video. So far I can recommend these easy controller set. I mean, for 40 bucks, a 2-player set. And I mean, there are still so many other buttons I didn't use. I did not use their player 1, player 2 light up buttons. I didn't use any of the yellow buttons. I kept the color scheme of the original Marvel superheroes. But yeah, it's not a bad deal. And the encoder boards, in order to be able to just go ahead and plug it in and immediately get power, is great. But other than that, if you guys have any other questions, just message me in comments, and I'll go ahead and leave these links with Amazon. I'm going to try those Amazon affiliated links. I don't know if they're working, honestly. I was having an issue with that. But if you can use those, please do. They help me. Thank you.